What's up? Welcome in. I am going to try to put on a smile and a brave face for everyone because I just have to sit and have my heart ripped out of my chest for game 3 of the NBA Finals. But we've been here before. We'll take game 4, go back even up to 2. Game 5. My presence alone in the state of Oklahoma on Monday when I arrive in my home state for game 5 will be enough to, whether it's 2-2 or 3-1, will be enough to lift the Thunder to victory in the NBA Finals, I am sure. But we're not here to talk about the NBA Finals, especially because a Seattle native is sitting on the screen opposite for me. So I'm sure that there's nothing. I don't want to hear
2 words
or whatever.
2 words. Sonic curse. Anyway, move on. Moving on.
Paul, it's good to see you.
You too, man.
We haven't talked in a while, so there's a lot for us to catch up on. So it's excited. I'm excited to have you on here. But first, everyone, make sure you go like and subscribe. Check out, I did a little bit of a rundown on Monday to give you guys kind of a rundown of some of the big news. We're going to talk more about that news this week. Star Wars News Net Live, recording this on a Wednesday. Today's Wednesday, right? Yeah, Wednesday at 11:38 Eastern time. So if I am able to get this out tomorrow, that means the Star Wars News Net Live is canceled because I have some plans that I am unable to break. If you're not listening to this tomorrow, probably it means that the show went on and all is well. So we'll have to see about that. But Paul, I'm excited to have you on because one, I think we have some great Star Wars chats as always.
We do.
Two, I think that we're like this interesting dynamic where I think that we kind of have a lot of the same viewpoints on certain things, but we kind of start at completely different places to reach those viewpoints. So I think it's a fun conversation to watch how those things merge together. I know that you have things to say about Andor, and I have not talked to you since Andor came out. We have not talked since the Dave Filoni, Carrie Beck stuff broke last week, and we have not talked at all since Starfighter was announced either. So there's a lot for us to cover today, and we'll kind of go rapid fire through some of these and then elaborate a little bit more on the end. And I'm sure you have some thoughts on the Darth Maul show that was announced at Celebration as well. So this is going to be just a big conglomerate of everything in Star Wars the last couple months. It's just a fun discussion as we enter into a summer and fall where we'll start production of a brand new Star Wars film, which is exciting. So a lot of fun nuggets coming up in the future. I guess we could talk a little Mando Grogu at the end if we really feel like it, just to get a vibe check, but nothing crazy out of there. But let's go ahead and start. Lay it on me. Andor Season 2. I know that you have what might be considered some hot takes about Andor.
I mean, okay, first of all, I love the new thing at the beginning, by the way. That I have not seen it before. So that was cool. Like, good job. Whoever did that, great job. You're doing great work here, Tyler. I appreciate you keep me involved in Star Wars Newsnet, and I love the site. And then most of all, honestly, appreciate everyone there, and obviously you, Tyler, keeping me involved, and just I really appreciate it, and I will look forward to having these conversations, and not just also our basketball conversations every once in a while. And
although they might be limited for a while, given we'll see how Friday goes. They might might go dark for a while. Might not.
Maybe. But anyway, I'm glad you actually don't ask me about my Star Wars takes, so we can save them for here. So. But I don't think you'll be shocked to know that, and to be honest, for those who know me and know my opinions of Andor Season 1, they're not much different than Season 2. There's not. I will say, I think it's going to be weird. It's hard to explain this. I think I liked Season 2 more,
right?
But I think the first 3 episodes are just hot garbage. Like for the most part, I don't like them. Like I remember just trying to be honest, I think they're a waste of time. Like, I think you could cut those 3 episodes off, in my opinion, and you could literally just input the rest of it, like a couple of important pieces, like with Mothma, basically. But Andor's whole thing is like worthless. It felt like we got to do something for 3 episodes. Well, let's put Andor on this planet and then play rock, paper, scissors for half the episode. It's like, oh my God. Like, I'm like, Gilroy, you really think this is like great Star Wars? F off, and
Planet Gavin doesn't do anything for you.
I mean, that was the only payoff, but to me, you did not have to do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. And so, I mean, was there good parts about it? Sure, but like it felt though, especially those 3 episodes, it felt very much like, look how dramatic and raw we can be, and how like everyone's strapping to survive. And it's like, I get it. I get it.
Okay.
And Gilroy just really wants to like, emphasize how great of a writer and how good they can make Star Wars be. It's like, to me, that's not good Star Wars, and like, is it well written? Sure. I mean, is
Right.
it high drama? Sure. But it's a complete waste of time, in my opinion. Now, that being said, the Gorman stuff, Krennic, all that Mothma, even Mothma stuff was like, is way overdone. But there's parts of it I think that are important, obviously, with Luthen. I think once those 3 episodes are done, I started liking it a lot more. And I got did I get COVID? Yeah, I got COVID during the last, like, the Gorman episodes, basically.
Oh, geez.
Right before. Yeah, it sucked. So I lost my voice with you, and then I got COVID later on. Like, just life just keeps hitting me, man. The Gorman episodes I think are pretty good for the most part. I mean, I'll be honest, all Andor stuff has it's overwritten, and it's dramatized, overacted at times, but it's still good. I'm not going to sit here and say it's garbage, because it's not. There's great stuff here. I think they definitely missed some opportunities. You're going to laugh at this, but I'm being 100% serious when I say this. I think they missed, to me, Gilroy. If Gilroy had a blank check, and this is a big reason why I don't think it happened, but I think it would have been. I think this would have been the ultimate Star Wars thing. And let me pitch this to you, okay? If budget wasn't an issue, Gilroy would have done a lot of goodwill to me as a Star Wars fan, as like getting the feel of Star Wars. If the Gorman people, when they attacked and they all rioted, they all started riding giant spiders. If they came in riding the giant spiders and they're like, rah, they're like, dude, I would be like, okay, they win, but they don't. So, because of probably budgetary reasons, but they spent half the season being like, these spiders are so important. It's like, you would have, because giant spiders would have been rad. First of all, right? I mean, it's just like, and you're appealing to like a younger audience of like giant monsters, coming in, helping the good guys. That's cool. But no, we got to keep it like super adult. Like, look how edgy we are with a big political statement of like, I get it. So I feel like that would have been pretty cool. That was a big missed opportunity, because I think that would have been rad. And again, you would be keeping with the aesthetic of Star Wars, one, with having big giant monsters, and also the aesthetic of having the world uniting around the fight the Empire.
Right.
So I feel like, I mean, again, that's a nitpick. That's just my own, like, I feel like that was a missed opportunity. I honestly, I hate to say it too, when K2SO comes in, it automatically ups a level. Like, it went, and it just bummed me out. He only showed up for 3 episodes. So, I mean, I feel like they could have introduced K2 sooner. I think they could have done, because I mean, how he was introduced was dramatic and cool, sure, but like, I feel like I would sacrifice that for having him more episodes. So, yeah, for the most, but I think I like season 2 more. But it's still more the same for me. Like, I like it. I don't love it. I think it's overrated. I think it's not pinnacle Star Wars. I think it's just massively adult driven Star Wars, which is not what I think Star Wars is based upon or should be based upon. So that's just me.
So obviously we really disagree about Andor season 2, but tell me about the first 3 episodes. Sure, I get the idea that maybe that they don't belong and the same level as the other story, much like the first 3 episodes of season 1. It is a slow burn, kind of putting all the pieces in play for the rest of the season. I think that it works better when those 3 are released all at once. You kind of watch them. Okay, I'm ready for where the story's going. And I will concede the fact that it felt like Cassian had nothing to do in those first 3 episodes, because they needed to stall for time while everything else was taking place.
Yeah.
However, I want you to elaborate a little bit more on one point you made. I wrote this down, was you wrote how you said how like it was a little bit over dramatized, overacted. Elaborate on that just a little bit for me.
Well, I think that you have like the whole Mothma like giving up her daughter and she's like, oh my god, and like in Mothma, some of that stuff was the whole wedding thing was just like, I get it. I think the whole a lot of the stuff in the 3 episodes were overacted. There's certain aspects of like I can't pinpoint every example, but I definitely could say the first 3 episodes are the biggest culprit of that. I would say sometimes just like some of the interactions of Andor and some of the people on like Yavin, it just seems heightened, right? And it just seems like even some of the Gorman interactions felt very just way over heightened. And some of my favorite moments were actually when he gets the rebellions are built on hope, or whatever
Right. No,
I forgot. I don't know the exact quote, but the light from Rogue One, I love it because it's very quiet. It's not over dramatized. It's very it feels very natural, and I think that was a strong point for me. I'm like, yeah, I like that because that's where Cassian got it. It's very like undermined.
right.
That stuff is great, but it felt like when you're hitting this over the head with like, we're so angry, we're so like this, and oh my god, and like it just felt that to me when they're going way too overboard with that. And it felt like, and again, like, I know why they're doing it, but it just felt like they're just doing it to like for the sake of doing it. And that to me is the show's biggest flaw.
Where I disagree a little though, especially with the Gorman, is you see the pushback against that. Like they have some of the characters that are so, oh my gosh, we're being oppressed, this is all happening.
Yeah.
And then you see how just not with it they are, and the consequences that follow. It's very similar, and it beats the head of the rich kid on the block for the first time in his life had his toys taken away from him, and thinks that suddenly he's going to make some big statement for the oppressed all over because he's going to stand up for what's right, when it's like, no, this is your first time kind of getting bullied in your entire life. You've had everything handed to you on this rich, affluent planet of Gorman. And now you think that suddenly, you've been beaten to your knees? No. And then we see what happens, as over the time goes on. By the end of the Gorman arc, they truly have been beaten into submission,
Right.
into where they're in, their entire planet, it's essentially the genocide of their entire, people. So
yeah,
I think that the gradual buildup of that, and then even the times where they even push back against, why are you so upset? Like, relax. I mean, it is insane to think that Star Wars would even go here on such an overt level, but Star Wars is making political statements since
for sure.
1977.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
This one just is a completely different tone than anything we've seen, which is why I love that, because I think that this can exist in Star Wars. I think if I would be more inclined to agree with you on some of this, if the next Star Wars project that was coming out was tonally very similar to Andor, and that was like a trend of where we were going. I think what makes Andor extremely special is that it's going to be kind of a timeless piece of Star Wars, that we have, that is going to be very unique and different in both how it looks, how it feels, how it sounds than any other piece of Star Wars. Well, take Ahsoka, for example, and I think we both enjoyed Ahsoka. I think you enjoyed a little bit more than I did. But tonally and aesthetically, there's so much of Star Wars that feels very similar to that beat. While nothing in Star Wars is even remotely close to what Andor delivers. And so I think that's what makes it, I can forgive the fact that maybe this doesn't feel like classic Star Wars, simply because this is some unique project that we're probably not going to see again, or at least if we see it again, it won't even look remotely like this. And I think that's fine. I don't want all my Star Wars to feel like Andor, but I think like Andor fulfills like a very specific purpose, not only just for Star Wars, but for the Disney brand as a whole too.
I think it's well said. And listen, I don't want Star Wars to all be the same either. I feel like you need to have these things. I just wish, if you're gonna do Andor, I wish you'd have someone who understood the brand more than Tony Gilroy, because Gilroy went so hard sci-fi that you lose a lot of what makes Star Wars special to me, which is the fantasy element. And I think that, and just going so hard sci-fi and focusing on that, which again, that's not a problem. I mean, we look at the Clone Wars, a great example of having a plethora of different types of stories to tell that you don't have, but it's told, in 22-minute increments, so it's a little bit different. I think that's the thing. I think if I could if you could find someone who's not so uber pretentious and pompous like Tony Gilroy, which I'm glad he's done. But you get someone, if you want to do Andor style, that's fine. Find someone who understands that, can embrace it, bring that seriousness and make like everyone want to watch it with it, sure, or make it for adults if you want to go that way. I'm not that's not what you're saying, but what other people might say. And just if you give someone who understands the brand a little bit more and doesn't need to have like so much hand holding of like, or be like, I'm smarter than the material. It's like, that's what I get from him. And I don't want that. I want someone who loves it. And now, or how about
this?
That's
where I disagree.
Well, hold on. Let me rephrase. Not love it. I want someone to understand it. And I don't think he understands it.
I think he understands it. I think he just was very clear that like, this is the story, this is the vision that I have, and this is the direction that I'm going. And it's a very sci-fi driven show. And I love sci-fi. I think there's a place for that in Star Wars, but there's fantasy. I think as the show goes on, the final season, especially, you get some of that fantasy elements, like with the Force healer and the whole idea that Cassian has been chosen by the Force in a sense, and he is destined to fulfill the specific task as the messenger. And it kind of creates a fantastical element around the whole show, because every decision that he's made, you can see that's almost like the Force has been willing all of these things together. And, I went straight into Rogue One. I finished, Andor, I finished season 2, and then that weekend, 2 days later, I think I went straight into Rogue One, and then I even watched A New Hope after, and I went on this whole, rabbit hole of Star Wars for a while.
Yeah, and I'll just, and I we'll end on this, and I think that I definitely agree season 2 is better. Like if I had to rewatch the season, I'd rewatch season 2, and I'd probably skip the first 3 episodes, to be quite honest. I mean, I hate to say it, but I'll probably, because I do feel like there was some good stuff there. I just feel like that show could have been a lot shorter and a lot more impactful, and it'd be better as like 3 movies, like 3 like hour-and-a-half movies. And if you would have cut it, I feel it would have been a lot better, but it was just kind of long or whatever. But listen, I don't hate it. I do like it. And I do feel that obviously Star Wars, I love sci-fi too. I mean, that's why I love Star Wars. I also love the fantasy element. I want marry the two together. That's Star Wars. You're cooking with Star Wars then. If you just do one or the other, that's when you're kind of like, so.
Okay. Anyway. All right. Well, we'll come back to this later, but let's move on here. Do you want to go into some Starfighter talk? Or you want to get into some Dave play?
Let's do Starfighter talk, and then we'll do Darth Maul, and maybe there was one more celebration thing I want to talk about real quick. But yeah, let's go with this.
So the last time we spoke, I told you we're going to be getting Sean Levy in our faces very soon. That was my prediction for the year. And I was very happy about this. Now, what I could not believe, and I still find hard to imagine, is the guy standing next to him being the lead actor in a Star Wars movie. And by being shocked, I don't mean shocked in a good or a bad way. Like, I'm not really sure how to feel. Like I said this earlier this week on one of our, shows, is that I was kind of wanted to put a vibe check out there to Star Wars fans, like about how we feel about Ryan Gosling being the lead. Because it's very not like Star Wars for a movie to have some A-list actor that every single person knows. Like, am I going to be able to see beyond the Ryan Gosling shtick and then really love this character? But on the other hand, I can probably just start naming movies that I absolutely love that Ryan Gosling is a lead in. So he's fantastic. So, and obviously Sean Levy's riding high right now. So I'm really curious, when you first heard the Ryan Gosling, Sean Levy partnership for this movie based after, episode 9, what was your initial gut reaction? And then flip now, a couple months down the road, you've had time to sit with it. Is that where
Mia Goth got cast.
Right.
I have never seen those X movies, whatever they're called. I know people who adore them, so I should go check them out one day.
Honestly, just wait, because if you're interested in Del Toro's Frankenstein with Oscar Isaac, she's in that, and then she's also in Nolan's Odyssey. So, I mean, if you want 2 projects that come out before Starfighter, versus having to go rewatch a whole trilogy, maybe that's what I would do. Because
Yeah, I ain't
For
I ain't
sure.
gonna have time. I ain't gonna have time to watch all 3 horror movies, much less
Exactly.
1, So,
Mhm.
um, so here's the thing with me. I'll be honest, I was a little surprised that his movie got, because I predicted that I thought he would be, I wasn't, to be honest, with Star Wars. You can blame anyone for not knowing, not thinking anything's gonna happen. To be quite honest, right?
At
I
this
did
point,
think
right?
I did think Sean Levy was going to be somehow involved in Marvel somehow. But it felt like with the Russos coming back and doing Doomsday and then Secret Wars,
Mhm.
that kind of threw that whole thing off. Because didn't yeah, so I think that probably was, because I do think Levy, if the Russos don't get involved, then I would not be shocked if Levy's working with Marvel. So, but
Mhm.
that's just me. Anyway, yeah, I to me it was interesting to hear that. First of all, I want to comment about what it takes place after Rise of Skywalker. That's
Mhm.
fascinating. Um, but I also think I think it's cool because let's not worry about where, just push things forward. Star Wars has got to
Mhm.
go forward. You can't keep going. Listen, Star Wars is a fluid, is a I love the fluid timeline of going back and forth, back and forth, back and
Mhm.
forth. I don't think you should lose that. But at some point, you have to move things forward, and you got to like kind of set a
Right.
tone a little bit. And I think what better way to do it with a director who's, like you said, writing high. I don't
Mhm.
think he's an amazing director. I think he's a good director. I don't think he's
Mhm.
amazing. But if as long as the story's good, I don't give a crap.
Right.
I mean, but if there's a couple of issues I have, not issues, but warnings I have about having a Ryan Gosling.
Right.
And I only say warnings because I listen, I'm a big Ryan Gosling fan. I love effing Drive. Drive is an
Mhm.
amazing movie. Have you seen Drive?
Yep.
Drive's chef's kiss. Blade Runner 2049,
Yep.
chef's kiss. Like two of my favorite movies of all time, he stars
Mhm.
in. And I've seen plenty of movies he's in that I love too. Um, he's an amazing actor, straight up. Like he can do anything. He can do comedy. So having someone versatile like Ryan Gosling is huge. I know they tried hard. He was definitely up for Kylo Ren at one point. Which he would. I mean, Adam Driver nailed. I love Kylo Ren. He's one of my favorite
Right.
characters. But I think he would have. If Adam Driver wasn't it, Ryan Gosling could. He's looking back at all this. I think
Mhm.
he could have been it. So I know whatever he does, he'll be good.
Right.
Um, I hate to say it. I'm just going to say it right now. I wonder if this project is like a money thing for him. Like I gotta make some money because he
Mhm.
doesn't. I mean, Barbie made a lot of money in Barbie. Don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
But it does also feel like I've done a lot of independent movies. You know, his wife is not working as much anymore. So he's the main, and he's got a lot of kids. And it feels like it's kind of one of those things. Like, look, I gotta strike while the iron's hot, kind of a thing
Mhm.
for himself because
I could
Ryan
say I could
Gosling,
see that, but I think there's been interest there for a while,
sure,
and I think Sean Levy is probably a very convincing individual,
I
especially
hope
when
so.
he's riding really hot. I think that the concern's valid. Here's what I'm excited about is I'm excited about the ensemble around him because, like, for instance, like Mia Goth is very much a relative unknown for most casual like
Yeah,
moviegoers, and probably
agreed.
most Star Wars fans will not really be aware of who this person is when this is starting to get some images from the set get released and more casting news. And so I'm hoping is the ensemble of villains that they have around him, or other characters, are some of these relatively unknown actors that can kind of grow into these roles to kind of almost counteract the fact that we're just going to be seeing Ryan Gosling the entire time, which I'm excited about. But if we, it's not like Star Wars to bring in like multiple A-list actors for a
Agreed.
movie. So the
Yeah.
fact that you have one, I like the idea of maybe getting some rising, potential rising stars to kind of circumvent some of that, gothing all that we
It,
might have.
And to be fair to Ryan Gosling, and listen, I do not begrudge Ryan Gosling for if it was. I mean, let's be real. I mean, whenever someone takes on a big project like this, they're gonna bring in a lot of money. It's an investment for them too. I mean, regardless if they love the script or not, or they think they're indifferent. That I'm not begrudging that against them. That's the only reason why it makes me a little nervous. But at the same, like you said, at the same time, just a kind of the pro and my con here as a pro. Ryan Gosling, I don't think would just sign up to do anything. And I think Barbie was, I'll be honest, when he signed up for Barbie, I'm like, okay, that's a cash grab too. And that ended up being a huge hit. And he was right because I haven't seen Barbie, but that was a creative hit. That was a creative hit. And he's a big reason. He's a big part of the reason why. And
it was my favorite movie month of my entire life, that June.
Yeah,
or that July with Mission Impossible 7, Oppenheimer, and Barbie back to back.
Impossible.
Best. Oh, get out of here! Stop.
Mission Impossible.
Best action franchise of all time.
I think what's cool about Gosling though is that you're right. He's an A-list movie star, but before Barbie, I'd argue he wasn't. I think he was a well-known actor, but he had done so many independent movies and so many interesting different things that he never went to an A-list, and I would say really until Barbie put him on A-list at this point. I mean, like he was always
to another stratosphere for
exactly. Sure. Yeah. So I say all that. So I think that like I think it's cool that this is the time for him to join a major franchise besides Barbie, like a Star Wars franchise. And I think that, with a name, let's go with a name like Starfighter.
Right.
I'll be honest too. I think one of the coolest things about Rogue One was, for me, the starfighting. I've always loved starfighting.
The space battle in Rogue One over Scarif is absolutely phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. Now, I don't think Starfighter is going to be like the Rogue One movie, that Patty Jenkins movie, or Rogue
Squadron.
Rogue Squadron, excuse me. But I do think if you're doing a movie called Starfighter, you're going to have a lot of space battles, and that's going to be tailor-made for the big screen. And I think that, and I'm just going to say this here. I hope, and I want on record right now, I hope, and I really, really hope I'm right, because not because I want to be right because I'm prideful, but I want to be right because I think it's a better idea to go away from Rebellion, away from the Empire. Let's do some really creative things with some spaceships, get some new blood in there. Like let's figure out, let's get some cool pirate looking ships. Let's get some creativity back into the spaceships that we've been losing for so long, which I think is a big criticism against the sequel trilogies, that everything looks the same. I understand the why, but there's that. Yeah, I don't want to get into that. But that being said,
about the time jump into the future. So obviously you mentioned you're very excited about the fact that Rise of Skywalker, we're moving beyond Rise of Skywalker, we're pushing into the future. But to me, there's a couple of question marks that exist and that make this one a very interesting choice, but one that I'm cautiously, I'm optimistic for, but I'm very cautious. And that's because, first of all, this movie does not feel like a saga extender.
Agreed.
There's a level of, let's say if the Rey movie's ever fully able to get up
ever made,
let's hope that happens. And that movie takes place. Whether or not they call that movie an episode 10 or not, that would feel like an extension.
That's Simon Kinberg, sir.
Right, but even with the Simon Kinberg movies,
right? Yeah.
Again, given the fact that they've come out and said that he's developing a trilogy of films set in the future of Star Wars, again, that feels like, whether they call it episode 10 or not, it will feel somewhat like, okay, a reset. They've basically said that he's developing some sort of reset, but that's going to feel like a saga extender.
Sure, yeah, I know what you mean.
More like hey, we're just doing this, one-off movie set here. And to me, that feels risky when you're playing in a post-sequel timeline that, sure, there are lots of sequel fans, but it's definitely a source of division amongst the fandom. And if you're having a Ryan Gosling as your lead, obviously you're hoping to just draw a bunch of people in with the Star Wars brand, Ryan Gosling, Sean Levy, everyone's excited. But I think there is a level of, we don't have a lot of experience with these Star Wars films that aren't, episode blank. We have Solo, we have Rogue One, an absolute disaster and an absolute success. So I am a little
financially,
yes, I'm just speaking financially
because
if the movie doesn't do well financially, it's going to absolutely. We'll see what happens with Mando and Grogu.
I'll print money. I'm not worried about that one.
I think that one is much less risky than this one, simply because this one is going to have a much larger budget than Mando and Grogu probably had, and they're going to be putting this out on the 50th anniversary year of Star Wars. Like, there's going to be a lot riding on this, which makes it interesting for me. So how would you maybe alleviate some of those concerns to me right now, given the fact that there are legitimate, concerns?
Well, first of all, I think that putting the timeline of the sequel trilogy is not a big deal, because I think let's put it this way. If you take out stormtroopers and what they look like and you just put you right into Star Wars world, you're not going to know what era it is unless they tell you, or you're somehow giving visual cues of when it is, or you know what I mean? Like, so I think the timing will affect us, the hardcore fans, or the fans who want to complain and talk about sequel trilogy being garbage on, those people on YouTube who are idiots, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, those people, like, that'll be for them. But for like Joe Schmo, who's like, oh, Ryan Gosling's in Star Wars, and they go in, as long as they don't beat us over the head with it, and they just tell a story and it's in Star Wars, but it happens to take place. Like, let's say, for instance, we don't get any visual references of the First Order or the New Republic, right? We get but there's a mention
we don't even know if there is a New Republic, or we don't know. We have no idea what's going on. That's what I'm excited for, is to know, like, what have we learned, and what does the new governing system look like?
Maybe we get the new governing system thing. Maybe that's mentioned, but I think it's going to be, you don't have to do that even. You can just have
I don't know if that's even appropriort for this level of film.
Exactly.
Like, you don't know. Ray needs to be involved in.
Or what I think would be cool is if you just kind of drop, like, a little thing of someone a little nugget. Like, doesn't have to be an obvious, like, again, like a Tony Gilroy, like, no, we can do. Sorry, I had to get my shot in. No, but in all seriousness, I do think that if you just put little nuggets, like you mentioned, like the Jedi, we've heard rumors of, like, the Jedi are coming back, like they're back. They're that now that would be cool, because then you could be hinting at the Rey movie at the without being like, hey, but for the people, let's go. They're gonna be like, oh, it's another Jedi, or blah 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 blah, because people don't know and don't care. They just want to see a good movie, and that's what will generate the buzz for the Lord willing. And I do think
that if there's no Force element, no Skywalker, because I've long been saying, we've talked about this, how I feel like going beyond the saga is really important. However, my idea of going beyond the saga was, okay, if we're going into the future, the Jedi are definitely present in some capacity, and it's like a legacy type thing. And if we go in the past, it's okay, we're doing the Mandalorian Jedi, conflict. We're doing the Old Republic. We're doing something where the Jedi, the Force, lightsabers are very much present and prominent, because at the core of Star Wars, like, people go for a lot of reasons. That's probably the number one reason people might go to see a Star Wars movie, just in general. And this doesn't feel like it's going to contain any of those elements. It might. No. I have no idea. Like, maybe Ryan Gosling is, for all we know, Ryan Gosling is going to wield the lightsaber of this. I have no idea.
I hope not.
It doesn't feel like that would be the direction that the story goes. And so that's where I kind of wonder how. Because let's just say this: a flawed Star Wars movie that has lightsabers and Jedi and Sith or dark side wielders, whatever, could probably do better. And this is just me spitballing. Probably going to be more financially successful than a pretty good movie without any of that, just beyond the saga.
I think, that's a good question. I mean, I'll be honest. When I think of Starfighter, I think of a good example of what you could fall into from a financial standpoint. Could be Solo. I mean, because that has no lightsabers. Now, granted, you're also depending on like there's a lot of pushback of like this guy's Han Solo, well, you know, like that whole
Mhm.
thing. Having an A-lister like Gosling is going to draw a different audience, and which is good. So I think for me, I'm confident that because it's called Starfighter, it's
Right.
gonna really sell it on that, but with Ryan Gosling as the lead, right? Like, so I think as long as we get lots of Starfighter dogfight action and the
Mhm.
story makes sense, I think you're
Yeah.
looking at probably um a successful film, because I think
Right.
I look at Rogue One, the dogfights in that are incredible. You get good creative dogfights, and you get a good character like
Mhm.
Ryan Gosling will nail. If you give a good character, Ryan Gosling will kill it. So I have no problem
Agreed.
there, and I think that honestly, I hope, I really do hope they don't make it obvious what timeline
Mhm.
it is. It's only obvious for us idiots out here,
Mhm.
and that if you do that, then I think they've done well. So we'll
Mhm.
see.
I like
I'm
that. My
cautiously
so my
optimistic.
my main, I guess, I think what would alleviate my concern is like what you said. You give a good character, Ryan Gosling, that's great. I think a big, a big thing that's going to help this movie is rolling off of good press from Mando and Grogu. I
Yeah,
really don't think we can undersell how important Mando and Grogu is going to be to the
I
future of
agree.
Star Wars at this point.
Mhm.
I'm pretty optimistic on that
I
film,
am too.
but again,
Yeah.
we'll have to wait and see. I'm curious. We mentioned the saga. We mentioned moving on. I'll be honest though, this movie I'm just really torn, I guess, in
For Grogu?
what no, like back to
Oh.
Starfighter, like
Mhm.
what level of story that we need to see for like the casual audience to kind of really grasp onto it, because we haven't really seen something in Star Wars before on the big screen that wasn't this grand like galactic level stakes that people financially has been successful, because Rogue One didn't involve the Skywalkers and all that. But
Yeah.
because it was so directly tied to the original
Mhm.
trilogy,
Mhm.
and Darth Vader was in it, I think that just made it pretty
Sure.
easy to sell. Well, versus this is going to be entirely different.
Yeah.
But I do kind of like we said, I'm going to ask you a question,
Sure.
because I think there's two schools of thought here,
Yeah.
like an optimistic one, maybe a pessimistic one.
Sure.
The optimist in me wants to say that, oh, this movie's already, I think, going to be on the track for success because Sean Levy wasn't really in the mix a year ago to be the next Star Wars movie up.
Mhm.
And he's got the story ready to go. He is pumped. He's excited. He's hot right now. He's
Yeah.
got Gosling on board. And this movie starts production in the fall. My goodness, like they must have a real, bomb cooking here.
Mhm.
But then the pessimistic side of me is, was he brought in to kind of save the day because they
Mm.
wanted to go these other directions and it was falling apart, and because they had no other better options, we just had to say, all right, Sean, you have this idea, just run with it. Let's just go ahead and try to get this going.
That's a good question. You know, I don't know anything about the movie business, especially of like the inner workings and everything. But the one thing I know I've always heard, and when I research or watch documentaries or whatever, what have you, about even about Star Wars, about anything movie making, which I love the behind the scenes stuff. I think that stuff is so
Right.
fascinating. The one thing I have always kind of it is about timing. And it
Hmm.
is very much like you have to take your opportunities when you can, and because you don't know when they're going to happen again,
Hmm.
even for these people who are bigger, who are hot, right? And I
Right.
think I think we will never know what the true, for a while anyway, what why or how. I mean, I think I hate being the guy always in the middle. I feel I'm always like the safe zone of like, well, actually, it's kind of both, Tyler. I hate to be that guy,
It probably is though.
but most things are, and I do think,
Hmm.
let's be real, I think they want to get the Ray movie out right away, and it's
Hmm.
very evident that ain't happening. Like,
Hmm.
and that we've got, and I want to go back. I don't want to go too deep into this because we got a little bit, and I got to get going soon. But I do think the Kinberg thing has kind of put a little bit of a kind
Hmm.
of like, let's just pump the brakes. And I think now, the fact that Levy is now
Hmm.
leapfrogged everybody, shows that things they're not ready. And
Right.
they may not, that Ray movie never may be ready, quote unquote, and then
Hmm.
it'll turn into Kimber. Okay, I won't get into, that's a whole different episode. But that being said, I don't think you're completely wrong, but I think that's why I think Kathleen Kennedy had so many fires in the oven, because I think she knew she was leaving soon, and probably one of the things they probably told her is, you better effing have some things in the fire, because we need him to be making some, we need him, you know, this is on you. And I think do I think that Sean Levy just threw a story out of his butt and was like, hey, I got a story out here, Ryan Gosling, Star Wars, just sell it, you know? I don't think it's that. I think there was a legitimate story there that they probably really liked. And I think the one thing that you got to realize, that I think with attaching someone like Gosling to it is going to draw in a lot of different people. And I think that it remains to be seen. I mean, you could be pessimistic and say, well, we're never going to get, like, it's probably not going to do well because it's not part of the Skywalker saga. I think here's the thing that you have to realize too, people. And I think that regardless of whether it's super successful or not financially, I think at some point Disney gets their head out of their butt and start putting things out that aren't Star Wars related, or excuse me, aren't Skywalker related, or directly, you know, trilogy related, and start doing that. At least, I know it's expensive at least, but you have to at least try and start, what's the word I'm looking for? Start naturally gravitating away from that to start getting people
used to that.
Exactly. Because you can't just be like, we can't rely on that all the time, because it's eventually going to dry up. And so you eventually have to start trying to taking, like, I hate to say it, but like throwing things, I don't want to say throwing things against the wall and see if they stick, because that's not really what they're doing. I think they're just they're trying to find the right stories to tell, because
which makes sense. They have all these different options that they're going with. You know, they have Starfighter, you have Rey, you have a Kimber trilogy, you got Back in Time with Mango, Filoni's culmination movie supposedly in work. So, you know, I agree. And that, I think, brings us into like Kathleen Kennedy's departure, and the fact that we're entering into, you mentioned she probably need to have like a movie ready in the book. Like, all right, here we go. We begin production in the fall.
Yeah.
Make way for, you know, the announcement that happened last week. But if you've been following Star Wars Newsnet for the last 18 months, this was of no surprise to you at all, because we've been saying this for a year and a half, is that Dave Filoni, Carrie Beck are set to, you know, this is a rumor, but like, come on, like, let's be real. Like, this is going to happen. It's pretty obvious. And there was a funny like tweet that was shared back whenever the Kathleen Kennedy interview was about to drop, and this guy was saying how, you know, I just someone that's like one of those insiders, quote unquote insiders, you know, and said, yep, I just heard who's going to be taking over for Lucasfilm with Kathleen Lees, and it's exactly who you'd expect. But he didn't say a name or anything, and so it's kind of like, oh,
ridiculous.
Someone in our Discord chat was like, I'll just start doing this for everything, you know, next year. Like, next year's Super Bowl champ, I know who it's going to be. Exactly who you expect. That's what he was saying. He's like, I'm like, it's so true, though, you know. What a
good call.
Lazy way of being a scooper. Anyway, so how do you feel? This is obviously is not an official announcement from Lucasfilm, but
sure,
we can all kind of read the tea leaves on this. We can be pretty confident. So let's just assume moving forward for this conversation that this is official. This is going to happen. And my main question, you know, for you is, beyond just your initial gut reaction, is I would say that most people would look at this and say, okay, Carrie Beck's going to be more on like the business side, kind of looking at the DC model. Carrie Beck's more on the business side. Filoni's going to be, you know, one of the main heads in the creative side. And, you know, those paths will, you know, merge at different times. They'll cross over into different, you know, each other's paths, but for the most part, kind of stay in their lanes. However, there would be some people out there, I think, that would say little concerned, because neither one of these people have ever had their name attached to like a feature film, let alone a Star Wars feature film. And that would be like outside of what kind of stories we're going to get in the future. Like, I think that these two have shown the ability to understand Star Wars and I think they will be able to work with people to create good Star Wars. My only concern is the fact that these two might be heading up a movie company and not have ever really been a part of a feature film. So that would be my main question to you, is how do you alleviate that concern for fans?
Sure.
And is that a concern for you at all? And what was your initial gut reaction essentially to this?
Okay. Yeah, so those are all great questions. First of all, initial gut reaction was not shocked, and I think it makes sense. That just I mean, honestly, so I'm kind of going right back to my gut reaction, also kind of leading into why I'm actually like good, and everything is for all those reactions of like, is this good? What does this mean? Should be the concerns? Listen, anytime you take on someone who doesn't have as much experience as somebody else, there's always a risk. There's always a risk for someone who takes over who has tons of experience. You just never know. You can never guess. If everyone could guess exactly, then you know what I mean? Yeah, we just trust it, but we can't because what would you expect Kathleen Kennedy to have the track record she had like right now when she first got on? I wouldn't have thought that. I mean, sure, you can't be perfect, but I mean, it's been like this.
It's been a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, and that is on her.
Some of the highest highs and then some
of the lowest lows. Sure. And that is on Kathleen. Straight up. Like, she's the boss. And so would I have predicted that? No. And in retrospect, would I have made a different decision in the past? Yes. I mean, to be straight up, I would, because to me, Kathleen Kennedy is her strength is producing and running, and she is running a franchise that also is essentially running an entire company, is very different than running a creative studio that puts out multiple projects of different kinds, of different, different tiers and things like that. And when you're running in a company, but you're also the executive producer, because that's her role. I mean, her role was that, answering to the bigwigs, but also making sure these movies are being made, her job. And the other stuff that her job was doing that a CEO would do or whatever, she's probably, I'm assuming, not doing, because that's not her role, right? Or not, or assuming not her role, but that's not her strength is. She's going to hire people beneath her to handle all that other CEO stuff, unless she has to get involved, right? So that being said, when you look at it like that, Carrie Beck and Dave Filoni, you really have nothing to lose at this point, in my opinion. Because one, who else is going to want to take on this role? I mean, that anyone's going to be confident in at this point, right? Like, I mean, think about it. Like, Kevin Feige? I mean, Kevin Feige there's some dirt on that one too now. It is not the light's not as bright as it used to be. I think Kevin's done a fine job with Marvel, but you could argue that he even has some, like, doesn't look as great as he used to be. There's no one sans George Lucas coming back, in my opinion, like would be a no-brainer. So besides Dave Filoni / someone else to help him, like a Carrie Beck. So listen, Dave is not perfect. Dave's going to make mistakes. Dave's not going to be a perfect track record. The Clone Wars speaks for itself, though. The Rebels speaks for itself. Ahsoka, Mandalorian speaks for itself. Are they all perfect? No. But are they pretty damn good, in my opinion? Yes. Like, he's under the tutelage of George. He understands what makes Star Wars work, from not just I'm writing a script level, from a production all the way down to the story structure of everything level, because he was executive producer of the Clone Wars. He was executive producer / writer of Rebels. He's executive producer of Mandalorian, directed, whatever. Carrie Beck helped produce and create Star Wars. She understands the inner workings of how to make these things run.
She's been in the writer's room. She's a writer as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, like, producing it's an important role, but is it critical for this role as like heading the whole company? I don't know. I mean, they're going to have, listen, I hate to I don't want to get biblical on this, but just bear with me. The Bible talks about, and again, I'm the last person to be, I'm not preaching anything here, but just bear with me. There's a parable or whatever it's called, where there's a whole idea of like, he who could be trusted with less can be trusted with many, right? Think of it like that way. And that's the only way these people can grow is by you see the fruits of what they've already have. And the thing is,
are you
Carrie
telling me
Beck,
Dave Filoni's ascension to the president of Lucasfilm is divine? Is
sure,
there's a
yes.
divinity to this
No, but like,
that I should
I
be trusting in?
no. What I'm saying is because his track record speaks for itself,
Right.
and her track record speaks for itself. All the other stuff of like, can they handle a big budget? It's like, dude, like it's yes, Rebels is not a movie, but like it's run similarly like a budget. You have writers, you have to work with
Right.
people. These are things that you need to have in working in any kind of leadership, regardless if it's
Okay.
leading 20 people or 500 people. It's all the same. Good.
Well, yeah. Well, let's assume all of that. Yes, check all those boxes. How my counterpoint to you would be that track record that you speak of. He hit. This Filoni's criticism, I think, from a lot of fans at this point. I think he has a lot of goodwill with fans, and I'm a big Filoni guy. I think that but I do think there is a validity to those that might say if he is the one that's spearheading Star Wars projects and the direction that they are going creatively for the next decade, he hits a certain note really well in Star Wars. Like he absolutely nails it. And I believe there is validity to the fear that are we going to get too much of that note for most Star Wars projects? Like, are we going to have the same, type of dialogue thrown at us, the same type of, lore-centric stories thrown at us? Because if you watch, The Mandalorian, you watch Ahsoka, the aesthetic, the feel, it feels very similar and it feels the same but my counter to that has been, to most of those people, has been the fact that there is diversity in the stories that he tells, like for sure. But I can also see the fact that when you see any of like the fatal sins that come up in a Filoni work, they do kind of rear their head in every single project to a certain degree.
Okay, so first of all, I don't think you're going to get Filoni's not dumb. Okay, first of all, Filoni is,
I was not trying to imply
no,
that he
no. You were not. I'm just saying. I want people who are concerned about Filoni. First of all, Filoni ain't dumb. He's learned from the master of George. All I have to say is, if you have any worries about Dave Filoni being a one note thing, go watch the Clone Wars, because that ain't one note. I mean, you have so many writers coming in. Again, I think it's
most
really
of the concerns would probably center around live action.
No, but
because most people aren't versed necessarily in the Clone Wars and Rebels and have watched all those shows like we have.
But Rebels is more one note because it's a more of a linear timeline and and more of a narrative going forward. Whereas the Clone Wars was all over the place, and I think that, to me, and again, you could say, it's only animation. Well, that's not what I'm talking about. Because you're worried about, not you, but like if you're worried about the same ideas and same whatevers, George literally showed and made, and Dave is no dummy either. That's why I say he's not dumb. They all worked on that thing together. It is so diverse of what kind of stories, what kind of action, what kind of writing, what kind of focus. It's all over the place. You could say it's a detriment to the series at that point. I think that is totally Dave and George working together hand in hand and making it work. And I think it taught Dave, in my opinion. If you look, I've watched those special features so many times, and there's definitely nuggets you get from Dave. He's learned so much from George. You can get the ideas that he learned. Oh, like I don't just want to do like a Rebels thing all the time. Now, by the time I did Rebels, that was a little more of a mandatory thing. You could tell like he's wanting to keep his job. Like there's a lot of different things. Rebels was a necessary evil at the time. Let's be real. But even at Rebels, there was some diversity of storytelling and whatnot, like what they did. So I mean, it wasn't.
What about those that might be concerned about the people coming on to do Star Wars projects, right? Becoming a who's who of Star Wars nerds. Like there's a level of lore appreciation that has to go into working with Filoni. Like he's going to be giving some of this versus having creatives in there making Star Wars that appreciate Star Wars, respect Star Wars, but aren't necessarily going to chop it up with Dave about how AP5's introduction into Rebels.
Jon Favreau. He wasn't. I mean, he wasn't a giant star. He loved the original trilogy.
Jon Favreau is the nerd.
No, hold on. Time out. he loved the original trilogy. He did not love the prequels. Straight up.
He sits there and talks about, playing with the toys and the
If
sandwich.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying he did. I'm saying he doesn't know the lore as well as George as Dave. And I remember, dude, if you watch the special features for The Mandalorian, the things after the season 1, what is one of the first thing that John says is that John said, Dave's got me has introduced more different and better aspects, and I appreciate the prequel trilogy way more now because of Dave. I didn't really like it before, now I do because Dave kind of explained things to me. So I say that because I don't think, like, John's a great example of, like, he likes one aspect of Star Wars,
right?
He loves, but that's not. But again, what did Dave do? He took that, he helped orchestrate and include everything, the lore, and now we get The Mandalorian, which is brilliant I think it's brilliant. I think the thing about Dave is he's going to do what makes sense. I know Dave you need someone like Dave, because if you don't have someone instructing the lore, you get, I'm just going to say it, Kathleen Kennedy, who doesn't know what the hell she's doing with the lore, and it lets it go all over the place. And because of that, you get a dysfunctional trilogy that's all over the place, and it's split down the middle. I think if you have someone like Dave Filoni and working with a Kimberg they already have a relationship, right? And think about this too. I mean, does Simon Kinberg sign on to do 3 films if he knows Kathleen Kennedy's leaving in a couple months? If he doesn't already respect the man or the person or the people, because both he's worked with Carrie Beck and with Dave on Rebels. If he doesn't respect both those people, he's not signing up for 3. Why would you sign up for 3 films if you don't know who the hell is going to be taking over?
Correct. So, that also goes to point, though, that people Kathleen Kennedy is a force to be reckoned with in Hollywood in terms of she can get some of those creatives that might not otherwise look to do Star Wars. She can at least get them in the room to talk. I don't know if Carrie Beck and Dave Filoni hitting your phone line is enough to get some people to come to the table to talk about, let's make a Star Wars project, or I'm going to bring my Star Wars project to them, just in terms of prestige, in terms of credentials, in terms of experience. Like, that's something that is I'm just talking about strictly feature films. And that's the only concern I have, because I think Carrie Beck has proven, in her history, that she is going to excel in this role. I think Dave is going to excel as the creative person, on the flip side of that coin. The only reason that I can really give pause for anything is the fact that there is no feature film experience, and it is incredibly difficult to even just get a film up and running, let alone made. And the people in charge,
Kathleen Kennedy couldn't do it for a while.
But even Kathleen Kennedy, though, she's not able to do it. I think that could, one, speak to maybe where she was not, excelling as a president of a company, but it also speaks to the fact of how difficult it is for these projects to get done. And we have 2 people that are going to head up a movie company that don't have any experience in doing so. Now, I think Kathleen's staying on to help produce these films for a while. Like, she's going to have an executive producer tag for Starfighter, I am sure. And I think that is part of maybe the plan, is we're going to ease them into it, work them into these 2 films. I'm sure that Dave and Carrie Beck were very involved in Mando and Grogu. And we know Dave was. And I'm sure they're going to be extremely involved in Starfighter. That's my only concern, is just on the feature film side. It feels like, as I'm a school teacher, it feels like if I had a principal coming in and they're like, yep, it's my first year as a principal, and I'm in a Title I school, and you're like, oh, so like, were you an assistant principal, like, at a Title I school before? It's like, no, I was the dean at over in the wealthy suburbs part of Orlando for the last few years, but I've worked with some really great people, and it's like, I'm sure you've done great work. I'm sure you have tons of experience in education, but are you really ready for the roles? I'm just a little bit worried about a bumpy start, and I don't know if Star Wars can afford a bumpy start.
Well, I first of all, I think you shouldn't worry about who getting big name directors or whatever, because honestly, Rogue One, Gareth Edwards, not a huge director. I mean, if anything, getting a J.J. Abrams and a Ryan Johnson really backfired on Kathy, a little bit, because they dictated a lot of what they wanted to do, and again, this is not a dig at Last Jedi, this is a dig on both. It was a detriment to that sequel trilogy. I think if you would have had a more singular vision, it'd be a better trilogy overall. Now, that being said, I don't think you have to worry about getting, because ultimately the stories have to be good. You can get a good director that isn't a big name to make a good movie. I mean, look at Rogue One. I mean, you got Ron Howard, who was a great director to save Solo, and what happened? It wasn't successful. Now you could argue, but I love that movie. I still will fight people to death about that movie. I think it's great, but you just don't, Marvel, the Marvel success is really what you got to look at. I think that's what ultimately, from like the early years when they were getting people who were not big name,
or even getting people that were not necessarily big, like comic book, like movie fans, like into the sphere,
who was a complete unknown. They got a Kenneth Branagh who had only done like a few things from that level, right? A great director and a great actor, but not a great, not a well-known, like, why would you give this guy $200 million or $140 million to make a Thor movie? Well, that's why. Joss Whedon hasn't made a movie that was successful at all. Avengers, one of the biggest movies of all time. It really is about momentum. It's about the story. It's about the characters. It's more than the director. The director just has to make sure they're doing their job. And I don't think that's going to be an issue. So I think there's nothing to worry about, and that's why I have nothing to worry about with Dave, because Dave is not going to be writing the scripts. Dave is only going to be overseeing a lot of the stuff. He's going to be writing some stuff, but he's only going to be overseeing a lot of stuff. He's going to let people be themselves. You see that all over the Clone Wars. Yeah, give him the notes. And you know what? We need the notes. We need the lore to be respected. We need the lore to be understood. And we don't need a million Dave Filonis. We need a Dave Filoni / George Lucas looking over this stuff, saying, "Hey, Lawrence Kasdan, no, that's not how it works." Or, "Hey, Marquand Manuel," or that's a safety from what's Richard Manuel? What? What's his name? The guy from what's his name? Mark. It's
I'm blanking.
Return of the Jedi. What's his name?
I'm blanking.
Gosh darn it!
Regardless, this all hints at, I'm really excited. I think Star Wars feels for the first time, in a while, and I think part of this is because Skeleton Crew was kind of like that early palate cleanser that that was served as like the soft reset, and then I think Andor, whether obviously we have differing opinions on how much we appreciate that we like Andor, but I think that Star Wars post Andor feels like it's in a really solid. We have a solid foundation for the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
and I think that I said this last week that I just am so uber excited to be back in a theater for a Star Wars movie. Like it'll be 7 years next year, and feels like it's been 20. And I really wish I was back in theaters for a Rey movie. Like, I cannot wait to see Daisy Ridley back on the big screen someday. Like, that is something that I am dying to see. But regardless, back on the big screen, that's going to be something that Star Wars very much needs. And I think that we're in a really solid place, because we don't need to spend much time on this, but if Mando and Grogu financially is a success, then I think that alone buys you goodwill for the next 5 years of Star Wars, because if that movie is a success and they already have post-production, pretty much going for Starfighter at that point, then they're going to get started on the next movie, whatever that is. If it's whatever is up next, they're going to be getting started on that, and they're going to feel great about it. And we'll be entering into a completely new era of Disney Plus at that point as well. So there's a lot to be optimistic for. I am optimistic about the Dave Filoni, Carrie Beck stuff. I think that a fresh voice is exciting. I think some people are like, oh my goodness, we're just hiring people from within. Just because someone is being promoted from within does not mean it's going to be a carbon copy of the previous regime. It's going to look there. Everyone brings their own style and their own way of thinking. Real fast before we get out of here, the Darth Maul show, I'm anticipating that coming out early next year is kind of what they're saying.
Finally.
How are you excited? Like, where's your level for a Darth Maul animated series? I'm just curious.
Well, listen, anytime we get more ILM animation for Star Wars, I want. And Bad Batch didn't. I liked the later seasons way more than the first season, so I was satisfied for the most part.
It got progressively better as the series went on.
Yeah. I love the Tales stories. I think those are great. I want more Tales of the Jedi. Just the fact we're going to be getting a different, like more like the underworld feel with Darth Maul. I'm really excited about to get with it's going to fit this animation perfectly. So I'm excited. Before we get out, one last. I'm excited for it. I mean, Sam Witwer is great. So the last thing I'll say I want to add too is don't sleep on Star Wars Vision's announcement about the extending of the series.
Oh yes,
dude, Ninth Jedi.
Jedi is gonna be exciting.
Thank you. Like I am effing jazzed for that SH, man. I am so ready for the Ninth Jedi extension. So I watched that on Star Wars Day at night before I went to bed, and I was like, that to me, those like whatever 7 minutes that is, that's peak Star Wars in my opinion. Chef's kiss. So I'm excited. I mean, we have a lot to look forward to.
This is a good time to be alive. It'll be a weird year because we don't have any. Really, there's no Star Wars until Mando and Grogu because they haven't announced the Maul series yet. I'd be shocked if it doesn't come out like next February, March, or something like that. But we have no Star Wars for a while. But we have a brand new movie that's going to go into production in the next few months, and a Mando and Grogu trailer that'll probably get dropped in the next few months as well. So it's a good time to be alive. Anyway,
Fantasy 4 maybe.
I feel like they might wait for like D23 in August.
Think about this. A lot of people are going to be watching it. You announce it. You put up. It doesn't have to be a trailer. It could be a teaser.
Just a little 30 seconds.
Teaser.
Yeah.
Little 30-second teaser or whatever. Put it in front of Fantastic Four.
When's Comic-Con? When's San Diego Comic-Con? Is it that same time? Right around the same time. Okay, that I could see that then for sure. And then I really hope that we get that, and then I want some more. I want to know the full cast for that movie. Like that's what I really was. That's the only thing that disappointed me from Celebration is I really wanted. Pedro was there, which I thought was awesome. The fact that he was there made me think that he's going to be. Oh, the the shorts in the boots.
So terrible. I'm sorry. I know
that someday that I can wear something like that and look that good still while wearing that. And people,
he didn't look good, but he can get away with it.
He could pull it up. That's what I'm saying. Like if I wore something like that to school, I would never be able to go back.
No, it didn't look good.
I hope to reach that level someday.
Ridiculous.
But him being there in person made me 100% confident we're going to see his face in the movie, which I was not that confident that we would. And the fact that he was there and said that he was on set for a few weeks just absolutely confirms that for me, because he could record lines anywhere at this point. For that role. So that makes me, but I was really hoping that they might be like, here's everyone that's going to be in this movie. And I was a little disappointed that we didn't get, say, even something simple like, hey, Katie Sackhoff, come out. She's Bo-Katan's going to be in the movie. Just something like that. Because the only thing we know about the cast is Pedro and is going to be, playing Mando. Obviously, Grogu's going to be in there, and then Sigourney Weaver is going to be in the movie as well. Like that's all we know about the cast, and I was
going to be a surprise. Let's keep it a surprise.
I love it. I love getting a good cast. I love getting.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, right on.
Anyway, Paul, appreciate you. Tell everyone about the Comic Binge real fast, please.
Yeah, real fast. Comic Binge YouTube channel. Go check us out. A lot of good episodes. Got a lot of Superman stuff, content out there. I mean, we have a plethora of all kinds of content. Star Wars content too. Go check us out. Subscribe if you already have. Appreciate it.
Are you looking forward to Superman or Fantastic Four more?
Probably Superman. Just because, even though I'm a Marvel zombie, I really want Superman to do well. So hopefully, and I've seen like a plethora of Fantastic Four iterations. I've just been hit or miss. So, well, I'm ready for a good Superman movie.
Which one's prediction time? Which one grosses more in its theatrical run?
Probably Superman.
Okay, interesting. I'm excited for probably a rank. July's a massive movie for blockbusters. You got Superman, Fantastic Four, Jurassic that comes out right before Superman. Like it's actually insane. One of those movies is gonna flop big time. I'm afraid. I don't know which one yet, but I I was thinking it would be Superman, but now I'm thinking that one might be the best one of the three, which is interesting given how things have been heating up lately.
I hope it's not FF, but I would not be shocked if it was.
I think I would have never bet on Jurassic being this, but I think they've marketed that movie horribly, and then the fact that it's not getting any IMAX screenings like at all for a Jurassic movie just seems like somehow they F that up right there, because I don't know how they don't have that movie in IMAX for the first week. It doesn't boggle my mind, but we'll see. Anyway, all right, Paul, appreciate you. We will chat again soon. For Light and Life. Everyone, remember, we're all the Republic out there.